Hello, everybody, and welcome to the marketing section of this class. I'm happy to have you here. I'm Dr. Erin Percival Carter. I'm an assistant professor of marketing at the Maine Business School here at the University of Maine. Prior to joining the University of Maine, I got my PhD at the University of Colorado Boulder, and prior to that, I was a marketing director for a diverse holding company of businesses that were all kind of focused on sustainability in various industries. So I'm coming at this from both kind of an academic and educational perspective, and with some work experience in addition to a lot of consulting work that I've done since coming back to academia. I'm also from an ag background myself, and recently founded the Business, Agriculture, and Rural Development Institute along with my colleague, Dr. Stephanie Welcomer, that is really focused on bringing business practices and contemporary business consulting advice directly to smaller scale agricultural producers. So while I am not an expert in this particular industry, I'm really excited to help out today and cover some basics of marketing. Before I get into the specific tool that I chose to highlight today, I want to give a pretty necessary disclaimer for this class, which is that in this market in particular, whatever kind of strategy you're going to develop, whatever kind of marketing strategy is going to make the most sense for you, is going to be heavily dependent on the specific product, hemp-based product that you're planning on developing and putting into the market, as well as your specific marketing plan and the region in which you're operating, right? Because obviously that has implications for what is versus is not allowed. And I'm not going to get into that because I'm not an expert. I tried to familiarize myself with it to a certain extent, but it seems like the kind of thing where you really just need to talk to a lawyer and figure out what is absolutely crystal clear and allowed, depending on what you're selling and where you are. So I'm not going to get into that today, but the good news is that the tool that I do want to focus on is going to be really useful regardless of the specifics of your product or the specifics of your market. It really should be the organizing principle around all of your marketing efforts going forward, and really even your product development and higher level business strategy. So before we get into the tool, I want to highlight a really important difference here that I think is often undercovered in kind of ag business practices consulting. People often start education that's targeted towards ag producers, kind of assuming people are one or the other, and not making clear what those assumptions are can really put producers in a rough spot. So when I think about advising ag producers about how they should go about selling their product, it really comes down to thinking through, okay, well, are you selling in commodity channels or are you selling in non-commodity channels? By commodity channels, I mean, are you planning on kind of taking the market price, selling to some kind of distributor, a product that is not going to be distinguishable in the minds of the end buyer, right? It's kind of all going into one big pool, and then just whatever the market price is, someone's going to pay it. And there's going to be no differentiation on the part of kind of either that intermediate buyer or the downstream final consumer that they're consuming the product that came from you. There's no difference in their minds. It's like, well, this is just stock cheddar cheese. There's nothing special about it. This is just some kind of stock CBD oil. And all I'm after is X percentage of CBD, right? And if that's what you're doing, then your path to success is going to be through pursuing economies of scale. You want to produce as much as possible with the lowest possible costs, and that's how you're going to do it. On the other side of that, if you are planning on doing something different from kind of taking those market prices, if you need to charge some kind of price premium, then what you have to do is all of a sudden not be indistinguishable in the minds of the buyer, but be readily distinguished. And that's what marketing is, right? Marketing is about explaining to your customer what about you is different. And one thing that I think can be really difficult for ag producers, I say as one myself, is really taking the step back ourselves and thinking through not what do I think makes my product special, but what does a customer care about and believe is different from my product in a way that's going to help them choose me and choose potentially to spend quite a bit more to choose me versus my competitor, which is really starting to get us closer to the tool that I want to highlight today. But before I do that, I'll, build off of the rest of this analogy and say that where in commodity channels you're really competing based on economies of scale, in non-commodity channels, it's not necessarily about producing as much as possible, as cheaply as possible. It's about making sure that you are getting to the right people with the right message to sell what you have at the price that you need to sell it. And so many smaller scale ag producers who cannot reach those economies of scale, who can't quite make it work in a commodity market, kind of know bits and pieces of what a non-commodity strategy needs to look like, but I think often don't get the full message of the extent to which really sophisticated, well-run, coherent marketing strategies are absolutely crucial to success if you're choosing that non-commodity path. Okay, so with that said, the tool that I want to highlight today is something that's called a positioning statement. And it looks like the most boring Mad Lib you've ever seen in your life. And it's tempting, I think, when you're introduced to this to kind of be like, what is the point of this exercise? I don't know that it's actually getting me closer to making better, more strategically informed decisions. And that's a really dangerous thing. I teach this in every marketing class that I teach, including when I know that I have the same students more than once. I inevitably use this anytime I take on a new consulting client. Sometimes, if they have a very well-developed marketing strategy, that's just a matter of me saying, hey, what is your positioning statement? And they can just rattle off for me exactly what goes in each of these blanks, and then we can move on and discuss kind of like downstream tactics and strategic decisions. But often, if there is no immediate answer to these questions, we know right away what we need to do. And that's put together one of these statements that really hangs together. So what goes in each of these blanks? Some of the most important, most foundational concepts in marketing. So for target market, who are you selling to? Who are you talking to here? Who matters at the end? Who are you trying to get to separate themselves from some of their limited hard-earned dollars in order to access your product? So for target market, product, this should be easy enough. What is the product that you're planning on selling? Is the point of comparison. And by point of comparison here, typically what that means is who is your closest competitor? Or if someone is going to buy one of two things to meet a specific need, what is the next closest substitute for your product? And this can be a really, really important strategic decision to make, particularly if this is a relatively new product, or if you're selling this product to people who are likely to be new consumers, which may be the case for many people in this market as the hemp market and the kinds of products that are coming out of hemp production become greater and more diverse. You may be finding yourself explaining the benefits of hemp to people who've never really thought about the benefits of hemp. When you're doing that, it's crucial that you introduce the concept of your product correctly, that you give people the correct frame of reference so that they know what they should be thinking of your product in reference to. Okay, so for target market, product is the point of comparison that provides, put in the correct term there to make this all make sense. Point of difference. So now, what is it that makes your product unique? And again, it's really important as agricultural producers who care deeply and in a lot of cases have built lifestyles around being able to produce the things that you produce, that you separate yourself from that in this moment and think about a point of difference that matters for your target market. Okay, that will provides point of difference, the thing that makes your product unique and particularly compelling, because you'll see different versions of positioning statements and like different forms of Mad Libs here. This is a really general one, but I do add in this last because reason to believe. So what is the best evidence that you have, the most compelling piece of evidence that you have for that target market, why your product provides this point of difference? Reason to believe, you're going to highlight that here right now, because in the majority of marketing communications that you're going to put together, to a certain extent, depending on what kind of behavior you're trying to achieve from your target market, usually it's sales, you go straight to the best kind of reason to believe, the best supporting evidence for the claim it is that you're making, the thing that you think most strongly sets your product apart. If you have all of these pieces put together in one coherent statement, it should be like really satisfying. I often say that, I play around with enough of these and I like them that it starts to feel like Sudoku when you get all of the pieces to fit together just right. It's just like really satisfying. It feels complete. It feels coherent. So you should get to that kind of place where you feel like, yes, all of the pieces snap together. I want to give you an example of this. And I'm not going to use a hemp product because I think that as you're learning how to do this and what I mean by like snapping together coherently, it's good to take a step back and think about a product that's far enough removed that you can kind of evaluate the process of developing one of these abstractly or from some kind of distance. And the product that I want to highlight is specifically DiGiorno. So DiGiorno pizza, right? We're all familiar with this. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. And let's like really think about the positioning of this product. So one thing that you might put together for this product would be something like, for college students, who I work with quite a bit, for college students, DiGiorno is the blank. So college students, target market that we're selecting here, product is DiGiorno. I want to think about like filling in this point of comparison so that the whole statement hangs together and like feels coherent and satisfying at the end of it. We're going to fill this in, that costs less because you typically spend less on dinner when you have frozen pizza versus delivery pizza. Okay, so costing less, that's pretty motivating to most of my undergraduate students. Like, think about how much they're going to spend on these meals. Absolutely, they like frozen pizza. You can see here that the point of difference is really speaking directly to that, costing less. And then the reason to believe actually has a little bit of the point of comparison built into it, right? You typically spend less on dinner when you have frozen versus delivery pizza. That seems like generally true. You could quibble with it a little bit, right? Depending on the deal that any particular store is offering on DiGiorno or delivery place might be offering on pizza. But yeah, I mean, if I order delivery pizza, especially by the time I tip someone, it's almost always going to cost more than even a slightly premium DiGiorno pizza. So if I want to highlight the lower cost of DiGiorno, I really have to highlight that benefit in comparison to delivery pizza, right? Compared to delivery pizza, it's less expensive. Now let's think about how we could put together something very different. So same target market, same product. For college students, DiGiorno is the fill in the blank again here. What's the point of comparison that's going to make this whole thing hang together? Is the blank that tastes more like delivery because you can actually see the crust rise as it bakes. Okay, so tastes more like delivery. It doesn't taste more like delivery than delivery, right? It's not more the thing than the thing. So now we're really thinking about this in comparison to frozen pizzas. So if I'm standing in front of the frozen food aisle, which is where most people are really making the purchase decision, at least the sales decision, standing in front of that line, in front of that big wall of refrigerators, thinking about which frozen pizza I'm going to bring home. What DiGiorno would like me to be thinking is, which one of these things is going to taste most like the thing I'm really going to want later, which is the delivery pizza? DiGiorno. And so I'll go and I'll select the DiGiorno instead of whatever other competing frozen pizza brands, right? And so you can see how we really need to kind of finagle all of this so that the pieces hang together. Now, I don't think any of you are putting together hemp frozen pizzas, but if you are, that's a very exciting place to go. And actually, now that I'm saying that, like, you could probably do some kind of hemp grain pizza crust, and it would be very exciting and artisanal. And if that's what you're working on, let me know because it's exciting. But the point of all of this is that you should be able to identify these key concepts of marketing. Target market, who are you talking to? Product, what is it that you're going to focus on developing? Point of comparison, okay, who are you really competing directly against in the minds of your customer? point of difference, what makes you unique and compelling, and not to you, the producer, but to that target market, because that's who matters for the positioning statement. And then finally, what's your most compelling piece of evidence? These are called positioning statements because they're about positioning your brand relative to other things in the mind of the customer. And again, simple Mad Libs exercise on the face of it, but really important to get it right, because all of your downstream tactical decisions in terms of product development and market research and where are you going to invest money, all of those are going to depend on who are you trying to talk to and what is your most compelling message. Whether that message is your packaging or the actual copy of your advertising or product design, all of those things need to be one coherent strategy. If you are really early stage, then I think it's all the more important to really put this together and kind of go out there in the market and test it with a pretty minimal set of product, if at all possible. A minimal amount of product, if at all possible. Go out there and see how people react. See if this positioning statement is really getting you what you think you're going to need in order to then scale your business. If you have a more developed business, a more robust set of products, then maybe it makes sense for you to think about developing one of these positioning statements for each of your products. Those are kind of further marketing decisions that you might need to make about how consistent do you want your overall brand to be, and how differentiated do you think each of your different product types or SKUs, however you're set up and thinking about it, how distinct are you thinking of those and their individual value propositions and target markets. So hopefully this has been helpful for everybody. I really think that it is one of the most fundamental useful tools in marketing, which is why I chose to focus on it. And I would love to, when we all kind of come back together and discuss this during the live session, really dig into positioning statements that some people might have put together, and we can see, how coherent do these feel? Okay, if that's the strategy that you're going with, what would be the ways to go and test to see how effective this is? And maybe get into some of those downstream decisions. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to chatting live, synchronously, whatever we're calling this now. Where did I put that? Sorry, I'm out of, and you can hear my livestock guardian dog yelling in the backyard probably. There we go. I just wanted to throw up contact info. So if you want to get in touch with me, there's my email, and then the website for Bard Institute, as well as my personal kind of research and consulting website. So thanks again, and looking forward to connecting with everybody shortly. Bye.